Hey guys, another video for our how to do stuff in Japan playlist, but it's another one of those videos that's more of a heads up probably than how to. So as some of you have seen on previous videos, the recycling system in Japan is fairly complex and comprehensive, with 22 categories of rubbish and all sorts of complicated stuff that we have to do. So over the years I've developed a pretty good system. At the old Japanese farmhouse we've got a spare room, like a storeroom, that we turned into the gomi room and a rubbish room. And we're really lucky because a lot of people who live in small places, they have to take their rubbish really regularly because they don't have anywhere to store it, and it soon becomes a problem. Whereas at our house we've got this rubbish room, which is sort of handy. So what I can do is divide all the rubbish up into its different categories and leave it in the rubbish room, and it means I don't have to do it every week. But there's 2 days a week where you take your normal rubbish, so like your kitchen rubbish and stuff like that, in a specific bag that you've already paid for. So the money goes to the city, and that's your normal rubbish, your kitchen rubbish that you take. There's 2 days a week where you can take that. There's 1 day a week where we can take plastic, and then other things like what the car's full of at the moment is aluminium cans, tin cans, PET bottles. What else have I got sitting here behind me? Oh, cardboard, plastic that's not recyclable, stuff like that. So I'd sort of over the years developed a bit of a system to sort of minimise, because at the same time we want to try and do our bit for the environment, and we want to try and recycle as much as possible. You don't want it to be a big drag, because as some of you would know, there's a lot of faffing that goes on here that's unnecessary. So for example, tying up our cardboard with string and things like that. And so you don't want to make it more complicated than it need to be, right? So I had a pretty good system going that sort of maximised doing the right thing for the community and the environment, and minimising how much work was involved and faffing was involved to do that. So it was working pretty well. And then the missus is involved in one of those ladies clubs, one mothers clubs, community groups. And someone in the community group said, okay, from now on we want to bring all our not all the recycling. They wanted, what did they want? They wanted cardboard, they wanted aluminium cans, they wanted paper, but then they changed their mind about the paper. And milk cartons. Some of you would have seen that video I showed you once before. Milk, 1 litre milk cartons, very common here. So you have to open up the milk carton to make it flat, and then you have to pile them all together and wash it first. You have to wash the milk carton first, and then open it up, make it flat, and then pile them all together and then tie it up with string, right? And everyone uses the same string, and they all tie it exactly the same way, and right? And so this community group said, this is what we want to do, right? So you've got to collect all this stuff together. And really, they're only making, for the amount of effort and faffing that they're putting in, they're only making a few yen. I had a system where Tuesdays and Thursdays I'd take the normal rubbish, Wednesdays I'd take the recycling plastic to the recycling plastic place, and then maybe once a month take all the other stuff to the city recycling centre. And then the cardboard, there's a local scout group, has a pretty smooth system. They've got sort of a shed, and you can go there anytime, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, take your cardboard, drop it off in that shed, and then now and again a truck comes from the cardboard recycling company and collects it all. So that's a pretty efficient system. The scouts only get a few yen for it, but it's such an efficient system, it's probably worth doing. So that's what I did, but suddenly we can't do that anymore. So this club, this community group wants to do it. So they're spending, it's all unnecessarily complicated. You've got all these groups of people with their white gloves on, faffing around with rubbish basically, and spending lots and lots of time on it to get a few yen for the community group. But they all feel good about it because we're already recycling our rubbish anyway, but their feeling is that now they're doing it for this community group, and as well as being good for the environment and good for the community, that they're also going to make a few yen for this community group, right? But the reality is they're making such minimum money it'd be easier just to throw them 20 yen and not bother, you know. But what happens, and this is the other part of this story, is that there's no question. So when they said this is what we do, my wife really couldn't say, oh, my husband already has a really smooth system for the recycling, so we really don't want to, you know, change that. She can't do that. The community group says this is what we're going to do. Everybody goes hi, and that's what they do. So she comes home and tells me, and so suddenly my smooth minimum faffing system has become really complicated, where the gommie room, the rubbish room, is always full at the moment. And then she started bringing home big Hessian bags. And what's the Hessian bags? Oh, they're milk cartons. So they had all these milk cartons all flattened out and tied up in string and then piled up in these big Hessian bags. And then she's bringing other people's rubbish home to put in the gommie room, right? It's like, what? Okay, all right. And because these big Hessian bags of milk cartons would only bring a few yen from the recycling place anyway, and the amount of time and effort that's put into collecting them all together and then putting them in these Hessian bags and putting them in the car and bringing them home, putting them in our rubbish room until some particular date where they take them all back to the community centre, and then the truck comes and takes them away, and then they get a few yen for it. So it's just suddenly my smooth system where it's all nice and tidy. And the reason I'm making this video right now is I went to collect all this stuff to put it together in the car to take to the recycling centre, and she's appeared with her white gloves on, and she's making sure that I'm not taking anything that needs to go to the community group. And because it all ends up in the same place, right? My system with the cardboard going to the scouts, the scouts then sell it to the recycling cardboard company anyway, so it all ends up in the same place. It's just with the system that we had, it was minimum effort, minimum faffing, and our rubbish room was empty now and again, because if I managed to get it all off, we'd have an empty rubbish room, which was really good to get it all nice and clean, and then slowly we'd fill it up again, and bit by bit it'd disappear and that sort of thing. So it was a pretty smooth system that I developed over the last 10 years, right? Suddenly now we've got this rubbish room that's always full, and now it's become full of these Hessian bags with other people's rubbish in it. I mean, it's clean enough, you know, they've washed all those milk cartons and tied them up. I mean, Japanese people's rubbish has to be some of the cleanest rubbish in the world. All the aluminium cans and PET bottles and other cans and all those things, they wash them before they throw them in the recycling, which I've pointed out before, you know, all those metals are melted down, right? So if there's a little bit of liquid in there, or if it's not clean in there, it's not going to matter, is it? Because they're going to melt them down. And the bottles and all those things too, they wash all them, and the milk cartons are washed, so it's the cleanest rubbish you'll ever come across. But it's just such a study in Japanese behaviour, you know, and unnecessary faffing. I mean, some countries that have recycling systems just have different coloured bins, don't they? You know, and that's got to be the easiest. So your food scraps go in that bin, and your paper goes in that bin, and your bottles go in that bin, and then the trucks come along and take it away, don't they? You don't have to keep handling it. You know, here it gets handled again and again and again and tied up with string. The tied up with string thing's a mystery. Tying up your cardboard in little piles tied up with string, you know? So there's that, the illogic, the lack of logic. And I mean, those who've been watching this for a while, we're always talking about the lack of logic with a lot of these things. The lack of logic. And then there's this community, this group thing where the group's doing this thing and nobody questions the logic of it, you know, or the you know, if there's a better way or a more efficient way or anything like that. Everyone just accepts it and everybody just does it. It's sort of a feel-good thing. Beautiful day, isn't it? Actually, there's a typhoon coming, so there's a lot of places closed today because the typhoon's coming. Just wanted to show you that. But you know, that lack of logic and the lack of common sense, but it's sort of feeling like you're doing the right thing. So she can't question it. It's really difficult to stay cool about it because you just want to go, look, let's just stop all this and just do it more logically. And you can't because it puts them, you know, if you're involved with any Japanese people, you just got to accept that the pressure to conform with whatever the group is doing is much stronger than any sort of logic or any sort of reason or any sort of suggestion you could make. That you know, from their point of view, there's no questioning it. If the group has said, you know, this is what we're going to do, or the group leader has said this is what we're going to do, then that's what we're going to do, and everybody just does it, no matter how much faffing and waste of time and illogical behaviour there is involved, you know. So so it's a heads up. It's a heads up. If you find yourself living in Japan and you've got some illogical, irrational stuff like this wasting your time for you, don't fight it. See the kid jumping around in the back seat there? Speaking of illogical behaviour. So that's the gambling place these old guys go to do their gambling. They're gambling on boat races. So those little boats, we showed you those before, little boats racing around, and they gamble on which boat's going to win. So we're going to finish this video by driving into the recycling centre. It's just down the hill here. Hopefully it's open. The concern is that there's a typhoon warning. Now, as you can see, it's pretty sunny at the moment, but what happens is when the Weather Bureau put a typhoon warning out, all logic goes out the window and everybody puts their shutters up and hides at home, even though at the moment, as you can see, it's sunny and there's no wind. But luckily it looks like the old guys are here. So finish this video with driving in the recycle centre. More videos coming soon.